When a young, pregnant black woman is killed by a police officer in a quiet New Jersey town, the incident sparks national outrage. But when the victim is identified as Mariama Kane, a skilled FBI agent working undercover to unravel a dangerous trafficking ring, the tragedy takes on new, chilling depths. Tamara Kane, Mariama's estranged sister and a disgraced journalist, returns home with one purpose: to uncover the truth behind her sister's death. As Tamara peels back the layers of Mariama's life and investigation, she unearths a web of corruption implicating local police, powerful criminals, and even Mariama's trusted FBI colleagues. Every answer she finds comes at a cost, bringing her closer to a deadly secret Mariama died protecting. But as she follows her sister's trail, Tamara faces a terrifying choice: risk everything to honor her sister's memory or keep silent to stay alive. When Officer Darren Colson, a decorated cop in a quiet New Jersey town, shoots an unarmed young black woman during a traffic stop, the nation erupts in outrage. But the tragedy takes an even darker turn when the victim is identified as Mariama Kane, a pregnant FBI agent working undercover to expose a powerful trafficking ring with ties reaching deep into local law enforcement. Soon, rumors swirl, evidence goes missing, and secrets buried under decades of corruption start to rise to the surface. Tamara Kane never thought she'd find herself back in her hometown, and she never imagined it would be to investigate her own sister's death. Once a promising investigative journalist in D.C., Tamara's life unraveled after a high-profile story went wrong. Now, driven by guilt over years of estrangement from her sister, she's determined to uncover the truth about what really happened to Mariama and why she was killed. But as she digs deeper, she finds herself facing a brutal network of power and lies, the very one Mariama died trying to expose. As Tamara follows her sister's trail, she begins to see her sister's courage in a new light, discovering the heartbreaking sacrifices Mariama made to protect the innocent. Yet every step closer to the truth puts Tamara in greater danger, with forces far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined closing in around her. And when Tamara uncovers a shocking twist linking her sister's death to an influential FBI official Mariama trusted, she's forced to confront the painful reality: the very institution her sister worked to protect might be behind her death. Now, Tamara faces an impossible choice: pursue justice for her sister and risk everything she's built, or turn her back and live with a secret that could destroy her. Beneath the Badge is a powerful thriller that delves into the bonds of family, the scars of betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of justice in a system rigged against it. In her early 30s, Tamara has a slender build, strong, expressive features, and haunted brown eyes. Her tightly curled hair is often pulled back, a subtle shield against the world. Tamara was once a rising investigative journalist in D.C., but faced disgrace after a source betrayed her. She and Mariama drifted apart years ago due to family tensions and divergent paths. Returning home, she is determined to redeem herself and make amends by investigating her sister's death. In her late 30s, Mariama is striking with dark olive skin, a radiant smile, and warm, empathetic eyes. Her athletic build and composed demeanor reflect her strength and resilience. Born and raised in the same small town, Mariama joined the FBI, working undercover to combat human trafficking. She was known for her dedication and courage, but her work came at a price, especially when she learned of corruption among the people she worked with. In his early 40s, tall and stocky, with short gray hair and steely blue eyes, he has a hardened face, marked by years of street work. A veteran cop, Colson's career has been plagued by allegations of misconduct, but he has always been protected by his superiors. Deeply resentful, he has exercised his authority with prejudice, and Mariama's case is the first to threaten his untouchable position. In his early 40s, tall and lean, with a clean-cut appearance and an air of quiet authority, he has piercing green eyes, graying hair, and an enigmatic smile. Cross is a high-ranking FBI officer who was Mariama's mentor and contact. Although respected for his skill, he is rumored to have blurred ethical lines in the past. He was secretly complicit in the drug trafficking ring Mariama was investigating, and he is willing to do anything to keep his involvement hidden. Small New Jersey town, a quiet, predominantly white community with well-kept homes and a long-standing network of good old boys, Beneath its peaceful exterior lies a deeply ingrained culture of favoritism and prejudice, with local police embroiled in the web of a criminal ring that Mariyama was investigating. Kane family home, a modest, aging house on the outskirts of town where Tamara and Mariyama grew up. It is filled with lingering memories and tensions from their childhood, a physical reminder of the strained relationship Tamara now struggles with. Tamara discovers vital evidence here, but it is also where she faces a deadly confrontation as she gets closer to the truth. Examining the crime scene, the quiet street where Mariyama was shot, Tamara sneaks onto the scene, hoping to find clues. She notices a hidden security camera nearby and suspects that the police may have covered up the footage. Tamara's distrust of the police and their vague explanation. Tamara decides to confront the police about the footage, escalating tensions. The confrontation at the police station setting. Tense and hostile police station. Tamara demands access to the security footage, but is refused by the chief, who becomes hostile. She sees Coulson in the background, increasing her frustration. Tamara's persistence in questioning the official story. Her encounter with Coulson further solidifies her suspicion that something is being hidden. A visit to Mariyama's colleague's setting. Sterile and imposing FBI office. Tamara meets other FBI agents who worked with Mariyama. One of them subtly suggests that Mariyama was investigating a network with important connections. Tamara questions about Mariyama's investigation. Tamara discovers that Mariyama may have stumbled upon something explosive, setting her on a path toward dangerous truths. Uncovering deeper ties. Scene 1. Researching the drug ring, local library. Tamara investigates old local news and police records, connecting incidents that may point to a drug ring involving known associates of Coulson. Suspicious tips from FBI agents. Tamara realizes that Mariyama's death may be linked to an ongoing, unreported criminal operation. Meeting an anonymous source. Scene. An empty bar after hours. A local informant, willing to talk about Coulson's connections to drug dealers, reveals Coulson as a protector of criminal activity. Tamara's determination to follow every lead. The informant's vague details point Tamara to a warehouse used for illegal activities, connecting her to a larger web of danger. Confronting Cross again. Scene. Phone call between Tamara and Agent Julian Cross. Tamara confronts Cross about Coulson's involvement in local crime, but he dismisses her claims, warning her to back off. Tamara's urgency for answers. Cross's warnings strengthen Tamara's resolve, increasing her suspicion that the FBI may be compromised. In the shadows, the warehouse discovery, the abandoned warehouse, eerie and silent. Tamara finds hidden records and items that indicate recent drug-related activity. Information from her source. Her discovery confirms Mariyama's suspicions, giving her more concrete evidence, but also painting a target on her back. Ambush. Outside the warehouse, deserted and dark. As Tamara leaves, she is pursued by two men who warn her to stop digging. She narrowly escapes, fooled but emboldened. Her investigation into Mariyama's leads continues. The incident shows Tamara that her life is now in danger, prompting her to act cautiously but persistently. Gathering support. Setting. Tamara's friend's house, a safe place to regroup. She confides in her journalist friend, who agrees to help her break the story by adding resources and connections. Tamara's recognition of her vulnerability. Tamara gains an ally, which strengthens her position but raises the stakes as the investigation deepens. Visiting an old family friend. Setting. A church, where a family friend works. Tamara discovers Mariyama's early run-ins with Coulson and the police chief, revealing years of tension between Mariyama and the local police. Tamara's need to understand her sister's history. She realizes that Mariyama was marked as a threat from the beginning, which brings her closer to uncovering why. Discovering a personal connection, a dusty archive of local records. Tamara discovers that Cross and Coulson went to the police academy together, suggesting an old alliance. Investigating Coulson and Cross's background. Tamara suspects the FBI has secrets of its own and is more determined to uncover them. Breaking the code, decoding Mariyama's notes. The Kane family home. Tamara deciphers Mariyama's coded notes, revealing the name of a high-ranking FBI official. Tamara's intense focus on her sister's research. She identifies Cross as an ally turned enemy, deepening the betrayal and motivating her to confront him directly. Confronting Cross in person setting. Cross's office. Tamara accuses Cross of covering up Mariama's murder. He stonewalls her, but warns her that she is putting herself in danger by pursuing him. Her discovery of Cross's role. Tamara leaves furious and compromised, realizing she is getting closer to the truth, but in grave danger. The trap. Mysterious evidence surfaces. Tamara's friend's apartment. A police file arrives anonymously, detailing Coulson's past abuse and suggesting his role in the drug trade. Tamara's relentless pursuit draws attention. She is now close to having enough evidence, but wonders who her anonymous source is. Cross's final threat. An abandoned location where Cross secretly meets Tamara. Cross gives Tamara a final warning to stop. He suggests that going public would destroy more lives than just hers. Cross's fear of exposure. She realizes that the reach of the conspiracy goes deeper than she thought, and that her life may soon be in danger. The final discovery. A hidden ally. A safe house provided by her journalist friend. Tamara's friend connects her to a former agent who knew Mariama. He provides information about the inner workings of the trafficking ring. Tamara's need for information about Mariama's investigation. Armed with this information, Tamara has enough to go public with her story. Going public. Press conference room. Action. Tamara goes public with her discoveries, but just as she is about to implicate Cross, he interrupts, creating chaos. Tamara's final effort to expose the truth. Cross is questioned publicly, and Tamara's evidence begins to boost her reputation. Aftermath. An epilogue. The trial setting. Courtroom. Action. Cross and Coulson stand trial, their conspiracies revealed. Tamara's relentless exposure of the truth. Justice is served, and Tamara's guilt over her sister's death is partially healed. Visiting Mariama's grave in the cemetery. Tamara speaks to Mariama's memory, feeling at peace, knowing she honored her sister's legacy. Closure. After the trial. Tamara finds solace in her journey, ready to return to her life, but forever changed. The road stretched out empty as Officer Darren Coulson's headlights cut through the early evening fog, illuminating the lone car pulled over on the shoulder. Darren's jaw clenched as he approached the vehicle, his hand hovering over his holstered gun. His gut twisted with the tension he'd carried his whole career, that sense of danger, but also something darker, resentment, hardened into a shield over the years. When he reached the driver's side, he saw a young black woman sitting calmly behind the wheel, her expression unreadable. "License and registration," he said, his voice clipped. The woman, Mariama Kane, calmly complied, her fingers reaching into her bag. But Darren's heartbeat quickened as she reached down, his vision narrowing to that small movement. Time seemed to stutter as he saw what he thought was a weapon and reacted instinctively, his hand pulling the trigger before his mind could register the truth. The deafening crack of his gunshot shattered the silence, and Mariama's body slumped forward, her eyes wide with shock. As Darren stood frozen, his gaze drifted to her hand, where a badge lay visible, glinting in the headlights, a badge that marked her as an FBI agent. His stomach lurched as he stumbled back, staring down at the woman he'd killed, realizing the consequences would ripple far beyond this moment. In her cramped, cluttered DC apartment, Tamara Kane struggled to focus on her latest article, her desk buried under files from a failed story that had derailed her once promising journalism career. A high-pitched ring jolted her from her thoughts, and she answered the phone, sighing. But the voice on the other end wasn't her editor. "Tamara." Her mother's voice trembled, and Tamara's heart dropped. "It's Mariama. She's gone." Tamara's hand went numb as the phone slipped from her fingers. Disbelief mixed with a surge of guilt and regret, memories flashing of the years of strained silence between her and Mariama, words left unsaid. How could she be gone? Mariama, her brave, unbreakable sister, a federal agent, gunned down on the side of a quiet road? In that moment, Tamara knew what she had to do. She had to return home, not just to grieve but to find out what had really happened. Whatever it took, she would uncover the truth. The police station loomed in front of Tamara like a fortress as she stepped inside, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow over the stark interior. The air was thick with tension as she approached the reception, asking to see Police Chief Grant. The officer at the desk hesitated, then led her down a narrow hallway. Chief Grant's office was cramped and cluttered, stacks of files littering every available surface. He looked up from his desk, his expression a blend of weariness and thinly veiled hostility. "I'm here about my sister, Mariama Kane," Tamara said, forcing her voice to remain steady. Chief Grant leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "I'm sorry for your loss, Ms. Kane, but there's not much more I can tell you." Tamara's fingers clenched into fists at his dismissive tone. "I need to know exactly what happened. I want to see the footage from the scene." The chief's face darkened, his gaze shifting. "That footage isn't available. It's under investigation." Her frustration boiled over as she caught sight of Officer Coulson lingering in the background, his face unreadable. She met his eyes for a moment, and a shiver ran down her spine. Something was off. She could feel it. Exiting the police station, Tamara made her way to a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where whispers and secrets hung in the air. She slipped into a booth, ignoring the curious glances from patrons who recognized her face from years past. As she waited for her coffee, she couldn't help but overhear two older men at the counter discussing Mariama in hushed tones. Their words dripped with resentment. "Good riddance," one of them muttered. She was always nosing around where she didn't belong. A waitress approached, placing a cup of coffee in front of Tamara and giving her a sympathetic smile. "I'm real sorry about your sister," she whispered. "She was well. She was looking into something big. Got people talking." Tamara's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" The waitress hesitated, casting a wary glance around. She was asking about things, people around here, things she shouldn't have been. "If you want answers, don't trust everyone." The waitress moved away before Tamara could ask more, but her words lingered, a warning that drove Tamara to dig deeper. Mariama hadn't just been a casualty. She'd been a target. The Kane family home felt as if it had been frozen in time. Tamara moved through the familiar rooms, the weight of memories pressing down on her as she sorted through Mariama's belongings. There, buried under clothes in her sister's closet, she found a small notebook, its cover worn and pages filled with hurried notes and names. Her heart raced as she flipped through it, each page revealing snippets of conversations, locations, and dates. Mariama had been following a trail, one that involved some of the town's most powerful figures. She'd scribbled the words, "Trust no one," next to the name of a prominent businessman and, chillingly, the name Coulson. As Tamara read, a sickening realization dawned. Mariama had been investigating something dangerous, and she'd likely known her life was at risk. Now, that risk was Tamara's to bear. Back in her old bedroom, surrounded by the echoes of her past, Tamara dialed the number of Mariama's FBI mentor, Agent Julian Cross. Her hands shook as she waited for him to pick up. "Agent Cross," he answered, his voice cool and composed. "It's Tamara Kane," she said. "I need to know about Mariama's investigation." There was a pause, then a sigh on the other end. "I'm sorry, Tamara. There's nothing I can tell you. It's better if you let this go." Her grip tightened on the phone. "You're asking me to turn my back on my sister. I'm trying to protect you." Mariama was involved in something complicated. People with a lot to lose. His voice softened. She knew the risks. "And if you follow this path, you'll be putting yourself in danger too." Tamara ended the call, his words echoing in her mind. But they only fueled her resolve. Whatever Mariama had uncovered, she'd known it was dangerous. And that meant Tamara had to find out what it was, no matter the cost. The abandoned warehouse was shrouded in shadows, the scent of dust and decay thick in the air. Tamara clutched a flashlight, its beam piercing through the darkness as she searched for any clue her sister might have left behind. It was here, according to Mariama's notebook, that some of her last leads had brought her. As Tamara scanned the room, she spotted a loose floorboard and pried it open, finding a small stash of photos and notes detailing the town's prominent figures and their suspected ties to a trafficking ring. But the sound of footsteps made her freeze, her heart pounding. She quickly tucked the evidence into her bag and doused the flashlight, slipping into the shadows. As the footsteps drew closer, Tamara held her breath, realizing she was no longer just an investigator. She was a target. The early morning sun cast a thin, eerie glow over the quiet road where Mariama's life had ended. Tamara parked a short distance away, her heart pounding as she made her way to the shoulder, feeling both anger and sorrow. In the dim light, she could see faint chalk marks still staining the pavement, ghostly remnants of her sister's final moments. She scanned the area, hoping to find something the police might have missed or deliberately ignored. As she approached a nearby street lamp, something caught her eye, a small security camera attached high up on the pole, angled toward the scene. Her pulse quickened. If this camera had recorded anything, it might be the evidence she needed. But deep down, she knew the odds were slim. The police would have reviewed any footage, and if it contradicted their story, they likely would have hidden it. Still, she made a mental note to confront Chief Grant about it. This camera could either confirm the police's story or expose a dark lie. Tamara stormed into the police station later that morning, her heels echoing on the sterile linoleum floors. The desk officer glanced up, his expression hardening as he recognized her from the previous day. "I need to see Chief Grant," she demanded, her voice laced with barely controlled fury. A few minutes later, she was led into the chief's office. He barely looked up as she entered, feigning disinterest, but Tamara could see the flicker of irritation in his eyes. "There's a security camera at the scene," she began without preamble. "I want to know if there's footage." Chief Grant leaned back in his chair, his face expressionless. "As I told you yesterday, the case is under investigation. I can't release anything to the public." "I'm not the public," she shot back. "I'm her sister. I have a right to know." Grant's expression turned cold. "Tamara, let it go. There's nothing in that footage you need to see." The deflection only fueled her anger. Before leaving, she glanced back to see Officer Coulson in the hallway, his gaze locked on her with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. The look in his eyes was enough to confirm her suspicions. They were hiding something. That afternoon, Tamara drove to the regional FBI office, where Mariama had worked. She entered the imposing glass building, her shoulders tense as she approached the reception desk and requested a meeting with any of Mariama's colleagues who might be willing to speak with her. After some waiting, an agent named Anderson escorted her into a conference room. His face was serious, his eyes kind but guarded. "I'm sorry for your loss, Miss Kane," he said, his voice low. "Mariama was a good agent. We're all devastated." Tamara nodded, the familiar knot of grief tightening in her throat. "I need to know more about her work here," she said, choosing her words carefully. "I think her death might be connected to her investigation." Anderson's expression shifted, a glint of unease flickering in his eyes. "I'm not sure what you're suggesting, but Mariama was involved in some sensitive cases. She knew the risks." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "If you're looking into this, be careful. She may have been onto something big." The weight of his words hung in the air, and Tamara felt a surge of resolve. If Mariama had been investigating something dangerous, she owed it to her sister to finish what she'd started. Later that day, Tamara sat in the dimly lit corner of the town's library, poring over old police reports and newspaper articles on local crime. The library felt like a relic, its musty pages and dusty shelves a world away from the polished halls of the FBI. As she combed through the records, certain names began to pop up repeatedly, businessmen with quiet influence, several of whom had connections to Officer Coulson. Her suspicions deepened as she began to piece together a troubling pattern of police reports that had been quietly dismissed, all of which hinted at illicit activity and missing persons. The more she dug, the more it became clear that her sister had stumbled upon something far-reaching, something worth killing to protect. She left the library feeling both exhilarated and terrified, her mind racing with questions about what Mariama had uncovered and how much danger she herself was now in. As evening fell, Tamara received a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the Blue Orchid. Midnight." She stared at the message, her mind racing with possibilities. Though the risk was high, she knew she couldn't ignore it. This might be her only chance to uncover more about Mariama's case. At midnight, Tamara slipped into the Blue Orchid, a dimly lit dive bar on the edge of town. She scanned the room until she spotted a figure in a dark booth, motioning for her to sit. Coulson was protecting someone, the man said without introduction, his face hidden in the shadows. "Your sister got too close. People with power don't like when you mess with their business." Tamara's pulse quickened. Who was she investigating? The man hesitated, then said, "There's a ring, trafficking. But it goes deep, and Coulson isn't the only one involved." Before she could ask more, he slid a piece of paper across the table with a name scribbled on it. "Follow this lead. But be careful. They're watching you, just like they watched her." She pocketed the note, a new layer of dread settling over her. Mariama's death hadn't been an accident, and now Tamara was part of a web she barely understood. Back in her car, Tamara dialed Agent Julian Cross's number, her hand trembling as she hit call. He answered on the second ring, his voice cold and clipped. "You're crossing a line, Tamara," he warned, not giving her a chance to speak. "Coulson and others in the town are involved in something big," she pressed, her voice shaking. "You must know something about this." Mariama didn't die over a routine traffic stop. Cross sighed, his tone softening slightly. "Tamara, I'm telling you as a friend. Stop. This isn't a game." Mariama knew what she was getting into, but you don't. His words hung heavily, but his veiled warning only strengthened her resolve. She ended the call, knowing she was on her own. Cross's refusal to help confirmed her fears. There was a rot within the FBI, and Mariama's death was only the beginning. The following morning, Tamara returned to the library, determined to connect the pieces of information she'd gathered. With a renewed sense of purpose, she sifted through town records, identifying several individuals Mariama had documented in her notes. Her research led her to a warehouse on the outskirts of town, mentioned multiple times in reports of suspicious activity but never followed up by the police. It was the same location her anonymous source had hinted at. Tamara's heart raced as she realized she'd found her next lead. Mariama's case, now her own, was leading her to the heart of a criminal operation far more entrenched than she'd imagined. She could feel the danger closing in, yet she knew she was just getting started.